fix the problem. But I'm going to be interested to think through the relationship between the two, and for example, whether you make the setback area around the actual scheduled sites bigger. So at the moment, I think it's 50 meters, whereas, you know, you potentially, if you made that bigger, then you arguably will potentially capture a bigger area that triggers a resource consent requirement for anything. It's about balancing, you know, the ability to get on and do what arguably should be relatively modest works, with a desire to make sure that they don't unearth something that goes unreported in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess my only comment on that would be that some stuff we do know is there, but it's just that it doesn't meet the evidential threshold to become a scheduled site, and so I guess yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize there was a threshold to be able to get onto the schedule. Is that right?
Yes. So it's around being more than a heartfelt belief that something there exists, and so, but what evidence there is to substantiate that beyond digging something up and and disturbing those sites of significance, which in many cases is not appropriate. There's not a lot to go on, or not a lot of evidence that can be presented that meets that that standard or that requirement. So that's one of the I guess challenges, is that we do know that through different corridor and I guess migration and settlement patterns, we do have a fair idea of where people occupied and how they may have used a place, but unless there's enough evidence for that site to be scheduled, then it's just an unscheduled site of significance. And I guess I'd also like to pick up on something that Sarah, Ms. Markle, mentioned about if EWP4 were to be retained, then making sure that the matters under SASM P, I can't remember what it was. Under
P2 or 5, was it?
Yeah.
P5, I think.
P5, yeah.
Yeah.
Making sure those were reflected in EWP4 to bring a bit more, I guess, vertical, horizontal alignment with the rest of the plan. And that would, we'd want to see that change happen if it were to be retained.
Yeah, I mean and we'll have to think about this quite a bit. The construct of both P4 and the earthworks chapter and P5 and SASM is the same. It's an obligation first up to avoid, and then a secondary obligation to remedy or mitigate, but if it's not possible to avoid, and then you determine whether it's not possible to, your remediation and mitigation strategy in the circumstance where you can't avoid is then determined having regard to those list of matters. And I guess if you're having regard to that list of matters, then you're already in a situation where you've failed to avoid. So it's a it's a fairly common architecture for these sorts of policies, because they take away with one hand and then they give with another, in a way. So yeah, it's a tricky one for us to get our heads around. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I didn't have anything else further. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank
Kia
you.
ora.
Thank you, Kit. And there was one other matter of noted down. Just give me a moment. I have asked that. Oh, look, that's everything I have too. And we will see you again. Thank you very much for your assistance. And you'll certainly be reminding us about these connections back to the Earthworks chapter when we talk again. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Julie, do we have Tane online?
Tane is online.
Okay. Well, let's hear from you, Tane. Kia ora.
A tēnā koutou. E hono re kuroria ki te atua e mai ngarongo ki te wenua whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa ti hei, mauri ora. Mauri ora tātou, ia tātou i ruto e tāhua tango o tēnei kaupapa hira hira. Nei rā te mihi ki ngā rangatira, ngā commissioners, me mihi ana ki o koutou, ngā kaimahi o te kainehira, ngā officers, ai tēnā koutou, ki ngā iwi, ki ngā kaihapu o te motu, o te rā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tāne manu tōku ingoa, ko au I tētahi hapu member. I'll just switch to English, no, sorry. My name is Tani Manu. I am the spokesperson for this particular kaupapa today. I am a descendant of Ngā Mahanga, Rawa ko Ngāti Tairi. So my hapu of Ngā Mahanga are from the Puniho Pā representation, from the Waiwera Nui back towards Hangatahua. That's our South Taranaki district boundary for Ngā Mahanga. Heading back towards New Plymouth from the Hangatahua, extends further to other places beyond our treaty boundary. I'll speak to them soon. But of course, Ngāti Tairi from Oakura Pā, from the township of Oakura. I've represented Ngā Manga Tairi on many resource management engagement processes, including Te Ara Aruhihi Weretani, which I'll speak to soon, the MPDC Three Waters Forum, and also the Ngā Kaitiaki Forum, a reference group that has provided strategic advice to councillor officers through the development of the strategic intent of this plan and the outcomes sought for our relationship with our ancestral lands, our Wāhi Tapu and Taonga. Just skipping forward, just wanted to, a big mihi to Matua Keith, the whānau of Ngāti Rahiri, and in full support of everything the iwi and hapu have said today. Mihi ana ki a koe Casey, raua ko Sarah from ko Taitanga o Tatiawa. Anō hoki ki a koe Te Kāhui o Taranaki. So just wanted to support all of our people today who have spoken, including our other representatives from other opportunities. Realistically, I'm just going to skip forward to some of the things I wanted to talk about was really in regards to the mitigation. We have a project that we're engaging with MPDC called Te Ara Aruhihi Weretani, and this 15-kilometre trail extends from the Uakura township up the side of our maunga, Patuha. Some of you might refer to it as the Kaitaki Range. 11 kilometres of new track heading into undisturbed indigenous vegetation. MPDC have engaged with a number of experts and reported back to us and have come back to us with the report, with the ecology reports that argue that the removal of 14 hectares of native vegetation can be mitigated to a low creation and eventual reform of the canopy above the proposal trail. This trail goes through 2 wahitapu, Kirihau wahitapu and the Pirongia wahitapu. The only way this particular trail was able to go ahead is because it's on an old paper road. If that paper road wasn't there, we'd be talking about the national park. However, while this could be considered a mitigation by the applicant, this is not a desirable mitigation for mana whenua, as we seek the protection from any further loss and encroachment upon remnants of unspoiled estate. Any acceptable mitigation is one that would enhance the mauri of our cultural significance, cultural significant places and our intimate connection with our ancestors, not detract us from them. So that's EWO1. Just picking up on some of the kōrero today, I just wanted to touch on Mauri. There was a question there around Mauri, the spelling, M-A-U-R-I.
I think we've lost Tane just briefly there. He was coming through loud and clear.
Sorry?
Tane, we just missed the last probably 30 seconds or so when you were talking about M-A-U-R-I.
Cool, sorry. I am rurally in Oneiro, so I apologise for that. Mauri, the A and the O talks about ownership. Who owns the mauri? Is the mauri owned by the land? Is the mauri owned by the people? Is the mauri owned by the awa, etc., etc. I just wanted to comment on that. That might help clear some of that stuff up. In regards to the archaeological side of this particular consent, has been protocols that the hapu, ngā maanga Atairi, have created, and we are insisting that these are our protocols and that these are the protocols that we would like the construction team to follow. Happy to take any questions on what that might look like. But also, no, that's it really for EWO1. EWP4 is exactly what we've just been talking about today in reference to having it removed. After listening to today's kōrero, some of the reasons why we need to strengthen, why I believe we need to strengthen these triggers is because we're actively working with sites that we know of that are there, and we are continued to engage about them. One of the particular developments that's happening in New Plymouth is the Whakawitiwiti Pa in the Marfell area, where for the last 20 years, this has been reclaimed, this area. Believe originally it was a wetland. And then over the years, the development has covered what we consider the Papakainga area, those land areas down below the pa site. And of course, we continue to work with our whānau from across the border with Ngāti Te Whiti on identifying those sites of significance to us that are outside those setbacks. Within the recent development, we've been assisting Ngāti Te Whiti on identifying some of those areas. And I think this particular case itself is one of those very, very unique cases that we do need a case-by-case scenario for. Notably, the other sites that that are identified on the district plan that are right beside the main pa site. There are more known areas in this area that we're still continuing to try and protect. I was just there last week with Ngāti Te Whiti at a house, just one house down from the Oranga pa site, the smaller site to the right. And there is always a growing concern too for the people in the area that are building the houses, that this particular archaeological process is an additional stress for the builders. Not only that, it's actually a complicated, very, very complicated scenario for hapu to engage in. Myself have been doing some cultural monitoring to, I guess, fill the gaps in this particular capacity that hapu are becoming more and more involved in. And I think without the potential for these triggers, there's no way we can identify potential shared outcomes for hapu in regards to what I would see is really keeping people safe on our land. And if I can, I'd just like to reflect on some of our values. I know we've talked about values today, but of course through the Te Ara Aruhi Weratini project, we established some core values, and some of those values like mana tiaki actually talk about mana being the authority and the tiaki being the guardianship, and what that authority of that guardianship might look like. In the implementation stage of what that looks like, these cultural monitors are an essential tool for mana whenua. And there is that, I guess, misalignment, I don't know how to say it, between the archaeological stuff and I guess the proposal being a permitted activity. Sorry, again, something dropped out there, but are we back? If I can, I just wanted to talk about mana tiaki, which describes our role as guardians of the land. And we're here for the benefit of future generations. And we're intimately entwined with our history, our culture, and our heritage by actively protecting our lands. And we are the ahika, we are the continuous fires that continue to burn. Likewise, it is our responsibility to ensure that people are culturally safe while upon our lands. In doing so, we draw upon the deeds and the practices of our ancestors and source of aspirations and emotions now and into the future. So when we draw on our aspirations and we draw on our ancestral tikanga, all of our protocols per hapu, per whānau, per iwi are going to be different. And from my experience, creating unique, one-off, accidental find, am I allowed to say that? Protocols for each of our sites is critical. And just touching on something via Chris said, who says when we stop, who says when we start again, and who verifies what we've actually found. And some of the thoughts around our hapu processes around, well, we want to know when it stops. We'd like to be involved as soon as we can, when or if anything's identified and found. And we'd also like to be the decision maker on where and when the digging excavation can actually start again. The 50-metre radius, giving it a 100-metre buffer zone, either side of the particular accidental find. But again, these SASM sites that are not identified are continuously going to come up, and I think without any type of trigger that will provide a robust and consistent way of engaging with us around earthworks, I think can only provide a better process for everyone to learn from, including the applicants, including the iwi, including hapu and council. That's really all I've got to talk to today, unless many people had any other questions.
Kia ora, Tāne. Appreciate your kōrero and appreciate you coming in on a bit of a skinny line there, but I think we've captured everything you wanted to say, so thank you for that. I did have a question, and this is probably a more general question. This is the one I was searching for when I was talking to Maria at the end. Are there submissions by some of the hapu on adding new scheduled SASMs over and above what was notified? I haven't made my way through all of the submissions on those points. So are the scheduled sites as notified the ones we're dealing with, or are there submissions for additional ones to be made or included? That's a question for you, Tāne, first, and then maybe we can go through the others as well.
Yeah, I guess there's, as far as I've been involved, there's always been an aspiration for hapu to identify more of our sites. And I guess we were only getting the opportunity to work alongside council to identify more sites when we're actually, I guess, being consultated and being engaged with, etc., etc. Sorry, I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm thinking, have you made a submission seeking other sites be added?
Not our hapu.
Okay.
No, but of course, we probably will be looking at that now that I think about it.
But maybe if Maria and Casey or could answer that. That's a question I had that I couldn't find, Maria.
Yeah, so we do have scope as part of our overall submission for including more sites of significance. Yeah.
Okay, great. And Casey or Sarah or Keith, certainly you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we've tried for years while the plan was being put together to include dozens of additional sites. And we've been told that can't be done, and that we've got to do that as an amendment to the rules, amendment to the plan after this plan is approved. And that is why we objected to the sites schedule as they stand now. In my opinion, a crazy situation. This could have been sorted years and years ago. Our last sites were approved in 2007, and we've got dozens more to put in. A missed opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I was certainly reflecting on the discussion about, I think Maria talked about the test being, it needs to be more than heartfelt and there needs to be evidence, but also as Chris Marsh has said to us, there is a knowledge of where things used to be, and you know, there's that information base, which some of it can be verified, some of it may not be, other than just oral tradition. But I am interested in that, and we will
If I can,
deal with. Yes, you go ahead.
If I can, the previous sites information that we put through, and that was done under a plan change with Mr. Coffin. Any site had to have archaeological evidence. And as Maria said, we have the stories, we have the survey plans that show where village sites were, but because there was no archaeological evidence, council actually hired an archaeologist to prove that the sites didn't archaeologically exist, and they were removed from the schedule. I understand that council have changed their minds a bit about that. And most certainly there are many sites on the current plan that do not have archaeological features. I'm hoping that that has changed and that we can go back and revisit those sites that we were not allowed to put on in 2007 and perhaps put them on this time around. So I'm extremely hopeful for that.
So your submission actually requests that outcome?
Our submission was to object to the new sites in their entirety because we were not allowed to put in our additional sites.
Oh, okay, I'm just thinking about obviously scope for us, so that's helpful. Casey, do you have any information from Ngāti Te Whiti?
I understand Te Kotaitanga has made a submission to add sites, but apart from that, I'm not too
okay.
over that. But
We'll certainly catch up with that in future hearings. So look, that's thankful, that's useful, and Tane, again, thanks for coming along. We saw you in the hearing one, I think. Appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for your assistance. Commissioner John, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. That was very clear. Similar themes, and I've made the same notes, so I'm fairly well informed on all of that. So kia ora, thank you for your evidence.
Thank you. Well, that does bring us to the end, I think, for today. Is that right, Julie, for today's schedule?
It does. I have one slight update for Monday's schedule while we've got people on the line, if it's appropriate. So as a result of minute 11, the commissioners have asked 4 submitters to make themselves available for questioning. They will all be available at 1 p.m. on Monday.
Okay, thank you. Now, in terms of just before we close up for the week, just confirming the list of homework. Julie, were you keeping a running list of things we'd asked for?
I was, but it's in about a 10-page document, so I'll have to work my way through those for you.
Okay. Certainly we're mindful of the submission regarding the Blue Haven scope. We need to look at that. And again, after another day staring at the screen, my brain's a bit scrambled, so I can't perhaps remember them all myself. So perhaps if you could just come back to me on those matters, that would be helpful.
Certainly.
Certainly enjoyed today and the scope and quality of evidence and the submissions we've heard. So thank you very much, everyone. It would be very good to end this week's hearing with the karakia if there was a volunteer.
Ai pai tēnā.
Thank you, Tane.
Nō reira, tēnā tātai. Ko te tūmana ko kia haumaru te noho tātai. So the biggest thing for us is to just be safe at this moment. So engari tēnei tō tātou karakia, wakamutu. Unuhia. Unuhia i te urupanui ki o mama tēnā kau te tīnana te wairua i te ara takatu. Ko ia rā e rongo whakairia ki runga kia wātia, aira kua wātia. Hau, pai marire tata.
Thank you, Tane.
Thank you very much. Be safe, everyone, and we'll see you all again. Thank you very much.
Ngā mihi.